Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. All right, guys, I held out for a long time on reacting to these kind of Reddit post videos. I don't know why, I didn't really know what they'd be like, but I've really enjoyed them since I started watching them. Non-Americans, what confuses you the most about America? I'm not going to watch the whole video, but let's check it out.
I am always amazed when I use Google Street View to stroll around some random road in the US. I wonder why and how the houses and backyards look so clean, with newly mown
Do you like a nice
grass and
lawn?
well-painted roofs and walls. I can't help but compare this to my country, which is a developing one. I'm thinking, what's wrong with our citizens such that when I use Street View...
Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Oops, sorry, guys. It's my other video getting ready.
Are you thinking what's wrong with our citizens such that when I use Street View on our streets, they're usually filthy?
I'm actually starting on a subject that they're saying America is pretty good with, is a pleasant surprise. I do like a nice lawn myself.
Ordinary American-style homes can only be found in high-class villages and subdivisions here.
I think it has to do with a lot with the land, right? Because land is a lot more available over in in America, that you can usually afford a piece of land and a house that you'd have to be very much more wealthy to have the same thing in Europe. That's my best guess.
Really depends of the area of America.
Yeah,
the
true.
Neighborhoods are a lot messier.
True.
We take great pride in our lawns, not gardens. That's where flowers grow. I get 2 days off a week and usually spend at least one of them cutting grass.
I hope I haven't heard this answer before, because I often upset you guys when I'm told something and I see it and then I forget it. But what do you call what we call the garden over there in the UK? The hedge, flower bed? Because what you call a garden, we call our property or our lawn. And then the places on the peripheries where we might grow flowers or vegetables, that would be the garden. So do you have a term for that?
Edging the driveway and road, working in the garden, again, only a small fraction of the yard, exclusively the part where flowers and vegetables grow.
Exactly.
Nothing is more American than sitting outside, having a barbecue and some cheap beer, and enjoying that fresh cut grass smell. Why
I'm so used to seeing a lot of these things with like how America is awful in a lot of ways. But that was nice. That was refreshing.
the water in the toilet is so high, and the walls of the stall are so high.
the
American
walls are
toilets
thin.
use siphonic flushing. You may be used to wash down toilets. Different mechanisms. Fascinating read. Thanks for sharing. We poop big. Still not the reason for wasting so much water. Just use
Just use a knife.
the goddamn knife. How nice. Friendly and welcoming. The vast
I didn't know the answer to that, so that was interesting.
majority of Americans are. The 24/7 news portrait quite the opposite. Statistically, it's tough to find anything that we Americans hate more than our own news media.
True.
Why everybody when talking about income calculates how much a person makes in a year instead of monthly like we do in my country. Every state works so differently. They could have been different countries without needing a president. That was the original.
Yeah, the governor is seen as the executive of a state. So if you ever heard of like a governor, an American governor, they are essentially the president of their state. Does that make sense? But they're still a state in the United States that is, in the end, often has to answer to the president and the legislative. So, yeah.
Intent. When I realized this, American politics suddenly made both much more and much less sense at the same time. Much more because I understood the relation between state and federal government. Much less because everybody only care about the president. That was kind of the original idea. The federal government had virtually no power under the Articles of Confederation. And even under the Constitution it doesn't have all that much power. It has simply usurped more and more of it over the years.
Yeah, it's been a gradual coming to terms with the reality of a powerless federal authority, centralized authority. And so, although like we didn't want central authority, like a king or, a strong president. We realized over time that, well, if the president of the country and the federal government can't do anything, then what's the point? And so I think we've gradually become more centralized. Does that make sense?
Initially, US looked a lot more like the EU does now than a single country. In old texts, the country isn't referred to as the United States, but rather these United States. The news portrays...
That's interesting. I didn't really think about it like that, and it's a big difference. Because the United States seems like one entity, where these United States seems like a group of entities. So I never really thought of it like that. That's cool.
United States, but rather these United States. The news portrays Americans as a bunch of ignorant, gun-toting rednecks. But when I travel in the US, they are really nice, friendly and helpful. My car broke down while leaving the Mount Rushmore parking lot and I couldn't get it started again. I must have had 30 other people offer to help in any way possible, either by letting me use their cell phones to call someone, or look under the hood for the trouble or offer me a ride.
I feel like especially if they hear you talk and you're from a foreign country, I think Americans would probably be more willing to help you because they know you might not know a lot of the you know what I mean? It's like you're from a different country, you probably want to be people will probably want to help you out more. I can't talk.
I was thankful to everyone. I came away with a good feeling about Americans and turned a bad problem into a not so bad problem. Thanks from a Canadian. The news only shows the interesting stuff, which is people being dicks to other people. Even the people the news ridicules, like the rednecks, are very nice and helpful. This surprises me being from the Northeast where you don't see many rednecks.
That's the thing about us hating the news, but really the news is only the way that the news is because we watch it. And so the news just tends to chase ratings. Ratings are going to be determined by how many people want to watch. And so it's kind of Americans complaining about how Americans want to watch certain things, And as much as I'd love a sort of a news station where it's state-owned, maybe, but then that could get messy.
It sucks how often Americans fall for this I've heard white conservative people complain about black liberals while having tons of POC liberal friends, and vice versa. It's like we think there's a difference between the people around us and the people on the news only own. I think the news really turns us against each other and we'd all be a lot more tolerant of each other if we stopped watching the news. So I'm an American and thought these were...
Again, I'm going to bring it up again. The only reason the news is the way it is because people watch it. If people stopped watching the more sensational news, then they would be forced to switch to more non-sensational, just unbiased reporting. The problem is that that's not what the market wants to see. We're the market. So we kind of have ourselves to blame.
We're gonna be negative, but a lot of them are actually kind of nice. Valet parking. Why would I want some stranger messing with my car? I can park my own car, thank you very much. Since everyone here drives, finding parking in a dense area can be a massive pain in the A. So people who can afford it will park valet because they can just drop it off at the curb right in front of where they're going. That said, I agree with you and never park valet. Not just because I'm not rich, but also because F you. Stay out of my car.
Well said.
I went to a car wash a while back where they kicked you out of the car so they could vacuum and wipe everything down. Not expecting it. I was very confused. I assumed I would just be driving through the flappy machine with the spray hoses.
It sounds pretty
I'll
nice.
give you an example where it makes perfect sense. I know of a hospital with free valet during normal hours. As a patient, it's great. You're picking up your loved one. They can't walk far due to injury or surgery or whatever whatever and the car is right there at the door for you. Or you're dropping your nana off but actually want to walk her in. Not just drop her at the door and go park, but they actually rolled it out for their own benefit, because someone would show up to pick up their aunt who just had a procedure and can walk a bit but not much. And knowing this, they'd pull the car up to the entrance, run up to get her, and get held up by the checkout process. Meanwhile their car, and everyone's car who's doing the same thing, is in the damn way. So for the price of a couple FT employees during business hours, you make the experience better for patients.
Okay, but when you think of a valet, do you really think of dropping off your grandma? I think of like you're rich, going to like a rich party or something. Like I don't usually think of going to pick up my grandma who just had surgery when I think of valet parking. I've never done valet parking. Maybe that's more of a thing.
And eliminate the problem of abandoned cars at the door. Tipping was forbidden. As a side note, while American news are all a bunch of gossip platforms for rumors that no one cares about. How your blood alcohol limit for what counts as drunk driving is so high.
Okay, again, if American news was a bunch of gossip platforms for rumors, that part might be fair. That no one cares about, that's where you're wrong. They wouldn't, where you don't care about, but they're in the market. If no one cares about it, no one would watch, and they would switch to a sort of reporting that people will watch. And so again, as much as I do hate a lot of American news, it's sort of our fault, not the news channel. They're just going to follow the trend that people want to see.
About how your blood alcohol limit.
I wonder if it's the same with European news.
For what counts as drunk driving is so high. 4x as high as Sweden's. That's a bit of a simplification.
Swedish drunk driving is 0.02? That's like half a beer, wouldn't it be? Why not just make it 0.0 at that point?
And it depends upon where you are. In my state of Washington, between 0.02 and 0.08 is officer's discretion as to whether you're arrested for DUI.
I don't like the officer discretion. I sort of get it, but I'd rather have just a limit because officers are still people, and I'm sure some of them can determine whether a person can drive or not in this limit, in this range, but they're not robots.
Also, if you have a CDL, commercial license, the limit is 0.04 regardless of the vehicle you're driving.
That means that if you have a larger vehicle, then it's more dangerous for you to be drunk than a smaller vehicle. Both are dangerous. Then I suppose I get that.
It varies from state to state. For example, Utah has a not a drop law, which will result in a DUI for even a 0.1% back, 0.01%. The lack of electric kettles. Our electric outlets have lower voltage, so it takes.
I'm curious, if you drink a good amount the night before, how long do you have to wait for it to read a 0.0? Because if I drink before and I'm drunk that night and I wake up, I might be hungover, but I'm not delirious and I can't drive. But I respect, what a state wants to put the law as.
Longer for the kettle to heat up than yours does, so the marginal benefit isn't as great. I have one though.
I didn't know about electric kettles until like 4 years ago, and they are a time saver.
Just not as snappy as ones I've used overseas. I don't know if this is true, but from the outside it seems like it. You sell everything trough sex, but then there is somebody's nipple in TV and it is so bad. You are so nice and very chatty. I, American, was with a group of English co-workers at a bar at a trade show in Atlanta. When we were ordering a drink, a patron at the bar started speaking to me. We have a nice normal 15-minute conversation as we waited for our drinks at a busy bar. When this concluded, my English co-workers were like, "Where did you know him from?" I am like, "What do you mean?" They are like, "You didn't know him. You spoke to a stranger for over 15 minutes. I was like, "Yes." They told me the only way that would happen in the UK is if the man at the bar was trying to sell something. I was dumbfounded.
I'm not a very social person, okay? I'm very introverted. But if I met someone who was interesting, I could see talking to a stranger for 15 minutes. That doesn't
I
seem
am
too
like you
strange.
go to the bar for dinner for the social interaction. If you wanted to be alone, just order room service. I specifically sit at the bar on business trips to get some human interaction.
Well, not always, okay? If you're not obliged to interact with people if you're not just ordering room service. That's a little bit silly to me. But also, it would depend on my mood for this situation.
They could not believe it. I am from Finland, so I understand those English co-workers. 80% of Americans I met are effing nice people. I thought the ratio of dick Americans are much higher.
The louder dick Americans are going to be the most obvious to spot, so I don't blame you.
That was one of the biggest misconceptions I had when visiting America for the first time, but almost everyone I met on my 1-week trip there was super friendly. I only ran into 2 people who weren't. An exaggeratedly stern security guard at the airport and a woman working in a toll booth who looked like she hated her job. As an American, if I had to pick 2 occupations known for being a-holes to the general public.
Yeah, they said TSA, but that's kind of for good reason, I guess. An a-hole. I don't know.
I would absolutely choose airport security and toll booth operator.
Toll booth operators are usually nice. And they have a job that is pretty depressing to a lot of people. Airport security, maybe, but sometimes I think it's necessary to be a little stern for safety's sake. You know? Okay, I'm going to end it there, but I do want to make one last comment. Like right here, I guess. I could say this comment on a few examples given here, but I have a theory as to why Americans come across as more sometimes social, it can be seen, or dickheads, as was said, is I think that a lot of other countries come from societies. I think it's changing for a lot of countries, but America has had more experience with it, but come from societies where you all kind of get the deal, you know? You know what I mean? America, I feel like, is so used generationally at this point to interacting with people from very different places and backgrounds to where I think you have to curb your attitude a bit to kind of just see what's up, you know? Where I think a lot of other countries, like Finland, for example, that I feel like a lot of people in Finland were born in Finland and their parents and grandparents and great-great-grandparents were Finnish and were born in that area. And so you have a sort of subliminal understanding, subliminal, the right word, an underlying understanding of how society is and how people are. Whereas I think in America, because it's made of so many people from different backgrounds and nationalities, ethnicities, you're forced, you can't rely on that understanding because you might not have that understanding. And I think that might build a more social, open, sometimes loud and annoying culture. Not sure, but that's sort of an opinion I have, or a theory I have. I would really love, not everyone hangs around for the end of the video. Hi guys, if you're here. I would really love to hear your opinion on that, or on anything else in the video. Love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. We'll keep going, keep learning, and I'll see you guys next time, hopefully. Bye, guys.